This is a story called The Mad Hatter Blog by Accomplished Oil 611 under the subreddit HFY. Starting a personal blog today, I was a bit hesitant. I know the law isn't on my side here, but I feel like I have to tell someone. The on-site psychologist told me that it helps to write things down, so let the therapy begin. A bit of background. So, I'm working at a research lab for neuroinnovations in human medicine that's been trying to fit prosthetics using brain implants. It's basic research, so we've been working with animals. The work was all pretty standard until last week when I tried a new technique. Let's back up. The company was failing pretty spectacularly. It was a pet project of a billionaire tech mogul who was now fighting bankruptcy. The work itself was cutting edge, but risky. The kind of risk that invited lawsuits. Bottom line, I got my notice last week. It wasn't a pink slip. Nope, they did it the usual way, where you just stop getting paychecks. There's an ongoing bet that we'll find the doors locked inside of 2 weeks. Sucks too, because I liked my job. The job was like your standard biotech, except we took a few more risks. My job was connecting sensors to the brains of a rat. The goal was to use that direct connection to control prosthetics. Not the altruistic kind, the military kind. The thing is, the brain generally doesn't like being poked and prodded, so instead of responding, the tissue instead tries to defend itself and essentially builds a scab around the sensor. It then diverts signals from that portion of the brain so as to avoid pointier, prodding sensors. Brains are smart like that. This results in a sensor that more or less becomes useless before a subject can even train to use it. The company had tried to develop bigger sensors, but that's like trying to create a Monet with a paint roller. Drugs are sometimes used to trick the brain into acceptance, but that inevitably leads to a variety of other issues. I once caught my boss saying this company was designed to fail. I guess he was right. Most people said fuck it and just left when they didn't get their last paycheck. So the lab's a ghost town. I thought about leaving too, but this was my chance to use all the cool lab space for my own ideas. The ones I begged them to try. Of course they said no. They always say no. HR said it makes people uncomfortable and asked me to stop making suggestions. So I did, but not anymore. I could feel it. This was my moment. Instead of trying to fit sensors to the brain, I did some research and found this awesome paper about how you grow artificial skin in the lab. The shit you can find on the internet is astounding. Anyway, we got this amazing state-of-the-art 3D printer, and now no one was using it. It was designed to layer chemical compounds for tailored drug designs. However, it didn't take me too long to retrofit it for biochemical compounds. Just took a few days before I had a prototype too. First, I created artificial brain tissue. To activate it, I needed a food source. I tried a few things. Sugar works, but it also kills the tissue after a while. Coffee makes everything go insane. After trying a few more things, I found the secret sauce. It turned out that what it likes most is what we all like most: bacon fat. It really is brain food. Who knew? I then modified the tissue to produce a layer for a bioneural network. The network layer consisted of a thin film of interconnected neurons. I almost immediately figured out that by simply activating it, you could create stronger and weaker bonds, but that took time for which I didn't have. Training this thing would be out of the question. Maybe I could shortcut the training. I needed to get weight and bias measurements. I'm lazy, so I designed the network using a computer. I stole liberally from open source, but the process still took me most of the rest of the week. I had to redesign the network like 50 times to get it right. I trained the network by connecting rat brain signals to a simulation of the prosthetic, using the network to understand and activate motion processes. Once I began seeing results, I turned my attention towards architecting a biological network. For a single layer, I spaced the tissue-based neurons in accordance with the bias and fed each neuron so that its strength was proportional to the trained values. Then, I layered the tissue, one over another, so that the network space layer would interface with the brain and the top layer interacted with the sensor. I built the neurons to expect a particular signal, so I was able to hook ultra-tiny wires to those pathways alone. I'd hoped that this would prevent the neuron from scabbing and failing, in the way that so many other tests had. Next came the moment of truth. The rat I chose for this experiment was way more rambunctious before surgery. Now, it just lay there. The prosthetic was even less erratic than one driven by the standard sensors. I didn't want to give up, so I tried it a bunch more times with different configurations. It all went quicker than expected, and before I knew it, the week was over. I hadn't thought about it until then, but it suddenly dawned on me that on the coming Monday, they'd probably euthanize all the animals. I felt bad leaving that evening. I wanted to take them with me, but my hands were full. They weren't going to pay me, so I took my compensation. That printer was heavy, but I got it into the car all the same. To my surprise, the doors weren't locked shut on Monday. In fact, they were broken wide open. A fire the previous evening had somehow broken out, and the entire lab was cinders. We had cameras, but the company had stopped paying the service fee. Everyone that showed up assumed that the owner started the fire to collect on the insurance. I thought so too. We mulled around talking for a bit when I overheard the fireman say that the fire had started in an animal pen on the 3rd floor. My floor. That was odd. There's plenty of easier places to start a fire in the lab. Sitting here, preparing to restart my experiments, I know it's not my fault, but I do sometimes wonder what might have happened to the rats of Nim. That was a short story called The Mad Hatter Blog by Accomplished Oil 611 under the subreddit HFY. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.